Deep within the heart of the Nordic region of Eastern Europe is the country known to all as Sweden. Risen from the land is the powerful Christian progressive metal band known to all as Pantocrator. At the forefront of Pantocrator is their frontman and lead screamer, Carl Wolfenson, bellowing fire and brimstone with the power of Almighty God. Carl belches mesmerizing lyrics in such a fashion that it brings glory to the Lord.
But what you might not realize is that there is a polite and prudent side of Carl, as he is an astute man of great intelligentsia, and we care so deeply about his opinions, primarily because, well, he's a dear friend of Freaks of the Vine, as he himself is what we call a fellow freak. And this is now our segment entitled Deep Thoughts
With the Swede.
Carl, what's happening, my friend?
Well, I got my vacation now, and I'm more busy than ever. You know, that's what happens on vacations.
Well, right. That's why I stole you.
But, yeah.
You and
So
I
I
were on
was
the phone the other day.
driving around buying stuff and doing work in the garden up till now.
I'm proud of you. You're building your wife a new planting garden. So
Yeah, I do that.
a box, planter's box. I talked. You and I were talking the other day, and you said, "Yeah, I'm on a little vacation." And I was like, "Oh, well, guess what you're gonna do? We have to do this on Friday." It worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, coming to you live from Sweden, my good friend Carl, and lead singer, of course, of Pantocrator, and also from Melek. And you are joined here with Patrick. This is our deep thoughts of the Swede, and my good friend Carl. Tonight we're going to talk about. Well, I say tonight. It's 2:00 in the afternoon my time, 9:00 in the evening your time. But we're going to talk now about something that I've been wanting to talk to somebody else about outside of America, and you surfaced the topic.
The racism.
Yeah. Okay.
The racism of low expectations.
We're going to really talk about what racism is and is not on this episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me jump right in here. Over the thousands of years that we've been human beings on this planet, there has always been a hatred for people who weren't in our section. If you were tribes, very tribal. Tribes in Central South America, North America, Europe, Asia, wherever you might be, Africa, tribes stick together and they are jealous of, work together with, or hate other tribes. Depends on the motive of the leader and the people.
Yeah.
With that said, obviously racism has become a problem of talking about it more now than we have ever spoke about it before. I will go on to my tangent shortly, but when you hear the term racism, what comes to mind for you? What immediately comes to mind?
Well, it's hating people of another skin color. That's
right.
That's what racism is to me, or looking down on other people, other ethnicities.
Absolutely. So when you and I were talking the other day, we weren't even talking about racism. We were talking about something completely different.
Yeah.
You surfaced a person who we really need to talk about, and that is
Margaret Sanger.
Absolutely. And Margaret Sanger, for those of you who do not know, was the founder eventually of what became known as Planned Parenthood. It was called something else originally.
And she is a hero of the left, because she helps.
She absolutely is.
She helps so-called oppressed races to kill their children at a very high rate, and therefore she's a hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
According to the left.
Yeah, and according to the left to this day. They do not like the idea of her being tied to this notion that she was all about what's called eugenics, which we're going to get to in a moment.
Yeah, it was. If you were following the science back in the early 1900s, you were deep into eugenics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know we blame it all on Hitler and the dudes today, but it was everyone. It was high fashion and it was good science.
Well, okay. And that said, do you realize? Let's go back a little bit. Margaret Sanger was born in 1879. I do remember that. And she had, regardless of her upbringing, she had this this love of trying to weed out people who were weak in her mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there's this birth of this movement called eugenics, and eugenics is basically taking what Darwin said about, the strong will survive, the weak, will be taken out. And it was this notion that apart from God, we are gods and that we could run with it. And so eugenics was this idea or the ideology of being able to squander and squash people who were of any, you could be white and be part of eugenic.
It doesn't have to be combined with racism. It comes like an extra. So the idea
if
is
you had a low IQ as a Caucasian, you were part of the eugenic pool being minimized.
So the idea is to get rid of bad seeds, and racism comes in the notion that other ethnicities are bad seeds in and of themselves.
Right.
But within your own people group, you got rid of the mentally retarded. I say that word,
Yeah.
I don't believe in words like variated and stuff like that, because it doesn't say what it's about.
Very good.
The retarded is a good way to say it, because people understand what that's about.
Mm-hmm.
You've been halted in your development.
There you go. Well said.
That's
So
it's like a reverse on the
Yeah. So eugenics would notice that you are, no matter what skin color you were, if you were low on an IQ test, or you were less than, you had a chance of being less than, let's say, two people together that were Caucasian, that were slow, low IQ.
Yeah.
Their chance of them producing somebody that's also slow and low IQ, they would encourage them to not have children together, or if they were pregnant, to abort their child. Okay, so guess who?
So let's say, so the difference between Hitler and Sanger is like Hitler wanted to root out the crops that was already grown, and Sanger just wanted to take her time and root them out over a space of time.
And the irony of this is that Adolf Hitler drew a lot of his influence from Margaret Sanger and the notion of...
I didn't know that, but it makes sense,
I watched a documentary today. It's only about 13 minutes long. It's called The Lost History. And I'm going to put it in the description line below our interview today, our talk today, because it's really interesting. But apparently he drew a lot of encouragement from her and what she stood for, and that now makes sense, because she was anti-Jew, anti-black, anti-brown skin, and anti-derelict Caucasian. So she grouped all of them together, as did Hitler. So kind of an interesting little, added dice to that.
Yeah, well, she had a longer span, like she
did.
She wasn't really into killing people that's already born, so she played the long game.
Yeah,
Hitler was more in a hurry. He had a war on his hands. So.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So it's taking it to another level, Carl. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have this problem, obviously, of eugenics being a real thing.
Excuse me for a moment.
Go ahead. He's going to say hi to his wife really quick.
Oh.
He's going to make sure his wife knows that he's not doing anything funny business. You should have her join us.
Well, actually, my son, and
Is
he
it your
told
son?
me he brought. Yeah, it was my son coming there, and he told me he brought home 5 kilos of ground grind pork, ground pork. The
Yeah. Uh-huh.
pork, ground pork. Yeah.
You should have your son say hi to us. It's totally okay.
Eller ja. Säg
Hi.
My friend, how are you doing? Your dad's cool.
Hi.
Tell him who you're talking to. It's a cool
Well,
word.
I'm talking to Pastor Patrick.
Okay,
So getting
going back
back
to our topic.
Getting back to Sanger, as I understand, her plan was to found abortion clinics in minority regions or like hoods, to help this inferior races to get rid of themselves
Yeah.
over time. Yeah. And she didn't want suspicion of them wanting to get rid of black people, so she hired black doctors and black nurses to make them feel more at home.
Exactly. And it's really
Because they
crazy.
kind
is
of-
that she got black clergy in New York to rally around her. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I know that.
That way people were like, oh, well, if the bishop so-and-so is behind her, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
evil.
lunacy, but it's also satanic, brother.
Oh yeah. So Dr. Jackal, Margaret, she went to the black clergy and painted this as like helping poor people or something. And then the Mr. Hyde Margaret went to the Ku Klux Klan and had her little TED talk. So I don't know,
Yeah, she
they
did.
didn't have TED talk back then, but the same kind of thing.
It was a motivation. So she goes to the KKK and she gets them to listen to what
so she explains the plan.
Absolutely.
So they would not oppose them. Yeah.
They completely love her. In fact, she's one of the very few female honorariums of the KKK. That's well known. Now, here's the funny thing. Not funny, it's ironic. But it's still funny. The irony here is that Margaret Sanger was a Democrat. I don't care where people are at in their registration of their voting in America. Okay. However, it is an ideology generally. If you're Democrat, you're kind of for all other colors. That's what the mentality is today. And if you're if you're Republican, you're racist and all this. Completely, everybody forgets Abraham Lincoln wanted to end abortion, gets killed for it, abortion, and slavery, gets killed for it, and he was a Republican. Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, he started the Republican Party around the question of
Abraham Lincoln.
Rid of slavery.
Woodrow Wilson was one of the worst racist white Democrats ever in the history of presidencies, and people forget this in America.
Yeah. So anyway, so back in the days, all of the South was Democrat back then.
Yes, and the North was Republican. Now, people say, well, if you talk to somebody today, they go, well, they just changed sides. And don't give me.
No, they didn't.
Okay. That's what I want to get. You and I need to put our heads together here and see if we can resolve the problems of the world here on this one. What I see is, and I'm just going to throw this at you. I'm bouncing off of you. You give me your response. If a person is deep-rooted in their hatred for somebody of a different color, and let's say they are aligned with this particular political party, they don't want people to label them as that because nobody wants to be called a racist, right? So then you begin to deflect. You begin to deflect. You say the right things, but you're always evil in your heart. Who says things like this?
Yeah.
I don't know. Satan does, right? He will mock and he will mimic. So now I bring up the mock and mimic for this purpose. So how do you see it American politics obviously influences a lot of other world politics. You see this going on over our last 60 years or so. What's your take on this? How is it that the one party who has always been about being racist is still that way, but doesn't admit it and deflects to everybody else?
It's an interesting topic. It's like a certain version of racism that you have on the liberal side, where it's about low expectation. Can't find the expectations. That the word?
That's
yeah.
it.
Like
Good job, Swede.
it's like you are patronizing instead of angry. You know, you kind of so a white person does something and let's say a Latino is doing the same thing, or someone from the Middle East or something, and you defend the one from the Middle East or the Latino, like you cannot expect the same code of behavior from them. That's racist. But they don't understand they're racist because, well, I'm on their side. Well, you kind of think they're your pets. So I guess
Right.
you're,
Is it common for a lot of people in Europe to feel very different about people in Turkey that are Turkish? I once had somebody from Switzerland tell me that Turkey is viewed as the worst part of Mexico is to America. I thought that was an interesting anecdote, but I didn't know that for sure.
Well, it's not a very nice country. It's a dictatorship, and
Okay, so it's your problem with them more because they're a dictatorship, or because of the people?
Well, so the problem with Turkey is that if they want to respect their profit and whatnot, go ahead, but you can't force other countries to abide by that behavior,
right?
Because we don't believe in Muhammad, and they kind of want to. When Sweden was joining NATO, it was a very long process because of Turkey, because they wanted to have Sweden agree on a lot of things in order to not block with their veto. And that kind of behavior is irritating.
So would you say like Sweden's issues with Turkey has more to do with ideological differences from an observation?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it's not the
absolutely.
fact that the people there have a darker skin. It's because
it's not.
Problem with their
What the problem with Turkey is that they oppress the Kurd minority, and they are as dark as the Turks, right? But so we have a lot of Kurdish former freedom fighters that escaped from Turkey, like Turkish freedom fighters.
Okay.
That escaped to Sweden, so what he wants from us, what Erdogan wants from us, is he labels them terrorists and want them sent back.
That sounds like a good dictator. That sounds like a prime dictator.
Yeah.
Okay, so your issue. So let's just say in this interview you represent your Swedish countrymen, and most would agree with you, right?
Well, there's two sides.
There are two sides, but people who are conservative in their views would agree with you about Turkey.
Yes.
Their dictator. Okay.
And people who are more liberal is like, well, they are willing to bow to this because so it's not just the Kurdish issue, it's also the issue of people burning the Quran in Sweden.
Right. Okay.
And so there are people here who want special rules for not burning a Quran. And the more conservative are like, no, that doesn't work. have the freedom of speech.
Right.
So no.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. So on that note, if we were to going to sit back and go, all right, we have a problem. A lot of people who are liberal, and you know this as well as I do, there are some who are just extreme and they just hate everything that the right would do or conservatives would do. But there are a lot of people who side with the liberal view because they still believe that there is an opportunity for worldwide peace. There are a lot of liberals who really do think they are liberal because they believe that if we give everybody a chance, if you just give peace a chance, it'll work. Little do they know that it never works. There's always going to be somebody on the block that wants to kick your ass. And that's the way it's always going to be. Right?
Yeah.
So this ideology, as we jump over here to understanding, I want to just reflect this real quick. I want to put this in light of then what we're looking at in America. So let's say I am American conservative and I look at what's going on with the not just Mexico, because I a lot of Latino friends that have come from Mexico, a lot of them. But a lot of them all of them that I know have come up here legally. They've entered into the process legally. We don't have, and Biden has done this thing with this open border. And so when you are against an open border, which is smart, you should be against an open border because you can see
which they are now all of a sudden
now because it's 6 months before election.
Well, now it doesn't work anymore, So
everybody
now we had the same thing in Sweden.
Did you really?
We had a very open border, and the political establishment was sitting on their high horses and calling everyone a racist, and then the system almost broke down, and then they just stomped on the brakes and let the curtain fall down, and so and they started migration politics that the right, and I talk the real right, that they wouldn't even dream of getting through, were initiated by the Social Democrats, and they were like, well, the system is almost broken down. Yeah, we told you for 10 years.
So right. So you guys had a similar.
So this happened 2015-16 somewhere.
Interesting.
Except that they called everyone a racist who was kind of, can we really afford all this? Do we have the system to? Can we find a place for these people?
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question.
Everyone said that was called a racist, and then
okay. So let me ask you a question regarding that. How has it affected you guys? Did it have a negative impact? Did it have a negative impact?
You had to. They had real problems with, like, they had to add not really trailers, but something similar to that,
like a housing
outside of the schools to fit more children in, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, well, we wasn't really prepared for the amount of people that came here, and you should be able to see that a little before it happens, But no, they had to define themselves against the alt-right, so to speak.
I gotcha.
And therefore they were all for open borders and no walls and whatever until the system was starting to crack up.
Well, it's the same thing with, like, you drive a car, and if you ignore the warning sign that it's low on oil, you're not going to like
you see the lamp. You see the little. You see the lamp, and you say, shouldn't you, maybe refill some oil? And the driver goes, you're a racist.
Why do you have a problem? That's my genie. That's my genie lamp, and I really need you to just let him be on the dashboard. Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right.
This lamp has nothing to do with not having enough oil. It's like, yeah.
Okay, you take these two sides.
Well, it
we
says
get
in the
this.
manual that it
Yeah,
indicates
right.
low oil. Yeah.
Okay, so we have this moment where, and we have this understanding. Both of our countries have done this. We've let people in. We've had it's had its backbreaking effect. Had to do something about it. America's saying they're going to do something about it now. I believe if Trump wins the election in November, he will do something more about it. The Democrats, who knows? It doesn't matter. But right now, it does matter because it has to be taken care of. Okay, so we understand that. Well, we live in a culture now where just by saying something that is opposed to an ideology is now called racist. Instead now of me hating, if I hated you because you're a European and you hated me because I'm an American, that's a tribal protection of hatred. But now if I don't like you, it's racist because you're in another country. Or you know what I'm saying? It's just you keep moving the needle, Carl. And how far can you?
It's kind of fun because you talk to these people and they say there is no culture that is inferior to another culture. Every culture is good. And then you say, well, what about macho culture? Well, that's another thing. What about what about conservative Christian culture? Well,
Yeah.
So if you can't say that one culture is better in some way than another culture, then you can't say there's anything wrong with Nazi culture either.
Right. Okay. And that's the point of this. Is like when you think about Hillary Clinton was designated the champion one year of the Planned Parenthood Lifetime Achievement Award. And she stood there and completely just championed Margaret Sanger. And in fact, one of her closing arguments or words about this was, "I stand today in awe of Margaret Sanger." Like it's a good thing. The woman wanted to off everybody that wasn't Caucasian. But yet we live in a society of cancel culture. And
also pretty much everyone that wasn't born with a silver spoon up their ass.
Right. Precisely. And we have this cancel culture, especially in the United States of America, where you're tearing down a statue of somebody who might have lived in the 17 or 1800s, regardless of what they stood for. They're tearing down statues. They want to take names off of buildings, all because after the George Floyd incident, this just blew up.
So
it backed off. But it's so freaking stupid.
Did you see the debate yesterday?
If you want,
I don't know if you noticed, but Biden mentioned pulling down monuments when he was talking about January 6th. And I was like, pulling down monuments? So that's a problem now?
So yeah. Well, I gotta tell you what, that's been the talk of the day. What's funny is that he was so bad bad at that debate, which you talk about, man, he spent 5 days at Camp David, his retreat, preparing for this. 5 days. Took a break. It was an offer to Trump they didn't think he'd take. It was an empty auditorium. Empty auditorium.
Yeah, I know.
And so it was the two of them. The two moderators were from CNN, the Communist News Network is what we call them in America.
I know, but I think they did a lot better work than last time because it felt like they asked.
So too. They asked good questions.
Yeah, I mean the moderators.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They asked really good questions.
They looked like objective people who asked hard and soft questions to both sides, and it did not look that way the last time.
No, I was really
last time it was the moderator and Biden teaming up on Trump. That was the last.
It really was, because all the
You know.
time that like it was supposed to be
So,
Trump answering the question.
I
all
was
he
kind
doing
of
was
I was
defending it.
kind of impressed of how the moderators handled this one.
Yeah, but it was set up to make Trump fail. The problem is he didn't fail. He nailed it.
No,
And
the thing is, I was looking at like news from the left wing here in Sweden, and they were pretty much on the line of, well, this thing with the turn down mics and all that is really served Trump. I I didn't think they would admit that, but because when he couldn't interrupt, he looked more civilized.
he did. So whoever advised him to just be himself and show more compassion, he didn't need to be on. I mean, he was still on the offensive several times, made some shots.
Oh yeah, he is a steam. He's a steam roller, or
but he took it down a notch, and he showed a side of him. Look, man, on Freaks of the Vine, when we were before the last election, I was very critical of Trump, not because I didn't like what he was doing with our country. I was tired of people saying he was a godly man when he showed a lot of evidences that he was not a godly man.
It's not his job to be either.
No, but when the Christian far right or Christians are so moved by their politics, they're so allegiant to their politics instead of to their God and to the Word of God. When they get that way, they start calling this man out as being a godly man, and he did more for the LGBTQ community, which we should not be for. We accept people for who they are, but we don't further their agenda. And he did more for them than any president before him, which nobody talks about. So I have a lot of issues with that man. But as far as how the country is rolling and how we are under a horrible inflation right now, nobody can afford stuff. It's just a matter of time before people start having to turn up crime just to survive, and that's going to be a reflection on us. So when we're talking about that, and we're not talking even politics today, but we're talking about, why does racism affect politics so much? Why does it?
The thing is that if we look to my country, the Social Democrats have, over time, they have been pretty restrictive in migration.
Okay.
And they have always been.
That's awesome.
Well, I think the Social Democrats have always been good at ruling the country. They have been pragmatic, and they have had a kind of a. I think they have balanced their budget better than the right over time, right?
Okay. Well, yeah,
but
proof is in the pudding.
When we got this alt-right party, the Swedish Democrats, they started to panic, and everything, because first they were like, oh, those weirdos on the right, and then they got more traction, and then they panicked, and they tried to, it was, the basket of deplorables thing over here as well, and the more they pissed on them, the more they grew, like flowers, And so they panicked, and everything was about making a stance against the Swedish Democrats, and they totally forgot to do the math on stuff, And it looks like your situation pretty much as well, doesn't it? That
it does.
You are so into defining yourself against Trump that you just become stupid.
I want to ask you this, because I'd like your opinion on this. If I sit back, I'm a registered independent voter. Okay.
Yeah.
Clearly,
Can you register independent? Isn't that the definition of not being registered?
Right. You can actually register independent, which I thought as a pastor I'd like to, because I like having a discussion with those people. But here's the thing.
Let it be known for the record that I am an independent. Yeah, I understand.
But I'm always conservative because I am a believer and I believe in the sanctity of human life. So I'm not for abortion, no matter what circumstance, things like that. But okay, with all that said, we could go into policy and politics or morality topics. That's not what I wanted to say here, but I wanted to say this. If I'm a person who's an independent or a moderate, okay, let's just say I was a moderate, even though I'm more conservative. If I was a moderate, I'm looking at both pictures of both alt positions.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm black and I think that in the United States of America in 1973, you could have a legal abortion because of Roe versus Wade, which was reversed and given back to the state to be able to their jurisdiction. If I'm black and I'm trying to figure out which way to go here, I might look at this one thing, that eugenics didn't die with Margaret Sanger or Adolf Hitler. And here's why I say that.
No.
67 million babies have been aborted in the United States in 51 years. Okay. The saddest part about this is that 36% of them are black.
Even though just 14% is black.
In a country that's only 13 to 14% black, 1/3 of all aborted babies over the last 51 years are black descent. If I'm somebody in the middle and I'm looking at both things, and the Democrats are all about this abortion, and they say, no, Margaret Sanger wasn't that bad, or, whatever they say, and they call Trump, the next or the reincarnation of Hitler. He ain't the reincarnation of Adolf freaking Hitler. They're stupid for saying that. And what do you say to this? Because it's just, what if somebody comes up and smacks you and you go, no, they didn't really smack me. They were just giving me a hug. You're a moron. They slapped you. How do you not see this, Carl?
I see this. Well,
right. So how would you tell me how you would?
I don't understand what to tell you.
Okay, I know you see it. I know that you see it, but how does somebody not see that? What's the problem with it?
Well, because genius has its limits, but stupidity is infinite. Probably that's the answer.
Say that again.
I said that genius has its limitations, but stupid is infinite. It's just the way it is.
I need to grab a blank microphone here and just drop it for you on that one. I
actually think that's an Einstein quote, so I'm not going to take.
No, but you reminded me of what Einstein might have said there, and that's absolutely correct. It's absolutely.
Yeah, and also,
it still doesn't answer the question though of why. Why would anybody think that that's okay? How could you be black? Of black descent and think that you would still vote for a party who clearly is after eugenics 100 years after it began?
Well, because they frame it in another way, That's why. They're very good at reframing this package. And by the way, have you studied the 10 Commandments of the Georgia Stones? The late Georgia Stones? You have a lot of eugenics there as well. Have you looked into that?
I did. I finally did. We actually did an episode.
Let procreation be handled with wisdom and care. That's not like a man and a woman in a fit of passion. That's like, okay, who's going to decide who's going to, it's breeding. If you look at the text, they're after breeding, not human life. Yeah.
Well, those Georgia stones that they ruined, and then now it's left abandoned. The guide stones were supposed to guide people to civilization after, let's say, post-apocalyptic. The Reds decided to push the button down back in 1981. Some people survived in a fallout shelter, come out. We've got nothing. You got a guide stone. That's what they were. It's not the 10 Commandments of the living God.
Yeah, I know. And you go to the guide stone and you read eugenics. Well, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Right. That's a great point. It's like morality. It's like, societal morality is based only on what you and I want, not what you and I should follow. Right.
Yeah.
So what God sets forward, he says, this is what you man shall do. And there's a reason for that. You don't have to like it, but you gotta respect it. You gotta honor it. I mean,
yeah.
At the end of the day, you're better off for doing that anyway.
Have you been reading your Bonhoeffer?
Yes, I have.
When it comes to stupidity, he says that stupidity has nothing to do with intelligence.
How did you? I just read this. I just read this on Monday. I read half of it of a book on Monday when I was in Philly.
Well, it's like here all the time for me because stupidity is a social construct.
Yes.
I don't like to use those words, but it's what it is because it is. It's about leaving your better judgment to be a part of the crowd, and that is the answer to your question before. How come people don't see it? Because if they see it, they're ostracized by their kin.
Well, it's the same thing as like if you're not 21 in America, you can't buy a gun. You can't buy a beer. You can't buy a lighter, not just cigarettes. You can't buy a lighter. I'm not even kidding you. So you have all the stuff.
The free and the home of the brave.
But if you're 8 years old, you can. If you're 8 years old, you can change your gender without your parents' notification. That's where we live in now. It's awesome.
Yeah,
that's sarcasm.
Clown country. To be the land of the free and the home of the brave, America has a surprising amount of restrictions and rules, and
but
bans.
Carl, the thing about it, and I want to be honest with you about this, man, it wasn't like this. It was not always like this. And it was a small percentage of people that were this Nimrod. It really was. I mean, when it came down to practical common sense gave way. Not today. Common sense makes no sense to the people who are in that younger generation. We've managed to breed a younger generation of complete morons, and that's the truth.
I've heard that it's turning.
Well, I think a lot of people are pretty pissed off about it.
There's more people in Generation Z that have like traditional values than their parents. And it's like the first time in history.
No, I'll tell you that as an age of 52 years old, I have absolutely more to do with that than my parents did. And I know that. And I know that my kids and their generation are so pissed off about this now that they're doing something about it. They're saying something about it because most of the country is not okay with this. But I have to tell you about the stupidity so that you get a better idea of where we're going if we don't stop it. And it has everything to do with that left ideology, no matter where a person stands. But the left pushes this idea, these different doctrines of demonic thought processes. And it's always hating your enemy when there's a disagreement. You and I don't agree on everything we talk about, but we have a pleasant conversation.
The fact is that I am pretty much leftish when it comes to economy. I'm like deeply unionized and all that.
You are.
But to me, that doesn't really, I don't see how this goes together with the typical left thing we see now. And a lot of those lefties are not very lefty when it comes to finances,
Yeah.
I mean, you see those tax fleeing movie stars from Hollywood that do everything to hide their pennies from Uncle Sam, and they are very lefty. And it's like, well, that's not left-wing politics as it's supposed to be, you know.
How asinine is it that you know that we have given money to Ukraine and Russia, who are fighting each other, and we have given money to Palestine and to Israel, who are fighting each other? How much freaking sense does that even make? It makes none. And that,
Well, have you watched Star Wars? What does Palpatine do when he wants to like get the power? He's not on the side of the Federation or the Republic. He is on the side of the war. Because he knows that people will grant him extra powers that he will happily lay down because he loves democracy.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now with our world. But, well, you know, at the end of the day, brother, we'll never make sense of anybody who is racist. We'll never make sense of anybody who supports eugenics.
The thing about racism, if you go to old school right-wing racism, you say like, well, other races suck. that's pretty much what it's about. Mm-hmm. Well, they're a little more stupid, and you know, we should rule. That's the idea of the right-wing racist, right? And then you go to the left-wing racist, and then they say, well, we agree that other races suck, but sucking is good. That's because they do it, and you have that. I know I sent it to you. The chart over whiteness in American culture, and it's like everything that makes a society work, like keeping to your deals, keeping a contract, like, and that's supposed to be white. Don't you think that like the kingdoms of Africa had a little sense of keeping your word?
You know, there's two things.
Holding a family together?
No, you're absolutely right. Coming in and thinking about that, you know.
So then they say, well, we agree that these people are this and that, but that's good because that's how they are.
Carl, when we talk about God giving people, God gives people, all people, knowledge of God. He gives everybody the knowledge of God. It's in the rebellion that they don't want anything to do with God, right? But they know he exists. They're given that. That's a denial. Atheism and agnosticism is absolutely just denial of what they already know in here. They don't want to know. Now, with that said, it's funny because like our mission that we support, the church in Kenya, their skin is black, more black than typical black Americans. That's untainted pigmentation. It's untainted.
Can I ask you a question about your friends in Kenya?
Yeah.
Are they unable to keep a family together because they're black?
No, they all keep. They have they have issues that are socially problematic. Somebody has a child, they don't want that child. They pitch it in a bush. That's a problem. They have the pastor and his wife, brother. No, right. I can't have abortion, so they have the baby, and they basically just they're getting rid of the child. But the pastor that I work with, him and his wife have their daughter came from that. They found her in a bush. She's a 5-year-old bouncy, happy child now. But the thing about it is, the homes aren't challenged like they are here because they don't have the social problems that we do here. And you know, when we pray together, dude, there is no color barrier. There never has been with them. They look to me as their brother. I look to them as my family. And I'm not saying that because of the difference of color. I'm saying that because we were never built on this bullshit. Absolute ridiculous. It's melanin that's in your skin if you're darker or lighter. And
it's good to have that. If you live in Africa, it's good to have that.
Yes.
If you live in Sweden, it's a little better to be pale because you need to suck the sunshine you get.
Yes.
It's like racism
is a social construct. You think answer that one.
What?
Racism is a social
What?
contract. Well, I should say systemic racism is a social construct, not racism. Right? Racist has been going on forever, but this idea of systemic racism is absolutely a social construct.
So, yeah, well,
What's your response to
I
that?
don't even know what that is. Yeah.
Precisely.
Systemic racism. It's so let's look at this. Systemic racism. Yeah, one of the redefinitions of racism that I've heard lately, like the last 10 years, is like, well, a white person can't be racist because white people are in charge, and it's racial prejudice together with power structure. Like racial prejudice together with power equals racist. Okay, so that means
that's their
that if you take so that means if we follow that logic to its bitter end, you take this redneck Ku Klux Klan guy from Louisiana and you move him to darkest Kenya.
Detroit.
And he
Kenya
cannot be a racist because black people have the power there. Will a Ku Klux Klan imperial wizard moved to Kenya not be a racist?
Yeah,
I think he'll still be a racist.
Oh, he will, but maybe being around people who don't give him a reason to, in that situation. They don't feed it.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get at is that if those people who redefine racist would never agree that the imperial wizard of the Ku Klux Klan stops being a racist just because you put him in Kenya.
I agree with that.
Because
however, he was raised also to hate.
And because they believe that white people is superior because they are racist.
but he was raised to hate.
Can't. What?
Think about this. He was raised to hate. He was raised that way. And given the imperial master and no credibility, no excuse for his behavior, no excuse for his actions, he goes down there, and let's say he goes into a tribe in Africa and he cannot leave. One of two things is going to happen. He's going to continue down his road of hatred, which is going to earn him no favors, or he's going to back off of it and maybe be conducive to his environment. And maybe there's even more of a difference, that the Holy Spirit of God gets a hold of him and changes his heart and transforms him into somebody who's not full of hate. If you and I sat here today and we had true racist feelings for people that were not the same skin tone as us, and we claimed that we were Christians, that doesn't mean anything. You and I could stand inside of our garage. We're sure as hell ain't going to turn into a car in 2 weeks. Nothing's going to change. Right? Our definition is by our what, according to Scripture? The fruit.
Yeah.
So if God is changing you and I, we're no longer looking at people by the basis of their color of their skin. We know they have different color of skin. We're not colorblind. We're not Stevie Wonder, right? We are.
Well, that's the new thing, that now it's racist to be colorblind because we have to acknowledge the oppression.
But see what I mean? The oppression comes from the people who hated everybody in the first place. The only people calling everybody else a racist are the left, and they're the ones who created it. As far as in America is concerned, the systemic racism comes from the left, and they're the ones who produce people like Woodrow Wilson, Margaret Sanger, who inspired Hitler, on and on and on, LBJ, all these other, people that are tyrants. Henry Ford, who hated anybody who wasn't white, by the way. A litany of people go on and on. They were all left liberal Americans, Democrats. I'm not trying to tie this to a political statement, but I am. When do you not realize that your culture that you're living in, whether it be your politics or the neighborhood you live in, are influencing your mentality instead of letting God influence your mentality.
Yeah. I saw this meme with on the first picture there's a Ku Klux Klan people, and on this next people it's Antifa with their black mask, and the text was Democrats in 1920, and the other picture was Democrats in 2020. And I thought that was kind of funny, so I posted it, and I got so much shit. And people was like, "Explain this. I don't understand this." It's like, read a little history, and you'll understand it.
Hey, do you know most people, if you ask somebody today about Margaret Sanger, they wouldn't be able to tell you that she was all into eugenics.
No,
They'd have no idea.
but it's not hard to find it if you just read a little.
Right. And she's championed as this sort of feminist movement. Like she was all about the feminine. No, she wasn't. She was about eradication of people who didn't look like she did. So, brother, man,
Well,
I always love our spirited conversations. I've kept you an hour now, so I need to cut this. Give us your parting words. The floor is yours. I'm going to even turn my microphone off to shut up for a minute after you, sir.
So, good people of America and all over the world, just don't be stupid. Use your head and use your heart, and don't mind social media, and you'll be fine.